Hi, welcome back to the Meme Team podcast. This week I'm welcoming Sophie Vershbow, a freelance journalist whose work you've seen in the New York Times, New York Magazine, Vogue, and Esquire. She spent 6 years doing social media for Random House. This week we're going to talk about politicians running creator playbooks and winning, OpenAI buying a podcast, and Ronan Farrow dropping one of the biggest tech profiles in years. Welcome, Sophie.
Thanks. Hi. Excited to be here.
Awesome. Okay, I want to talk about competency porn and hot Democrats, the new political content playbook for the new elections. So part of what we're seeing here is how much success Zoran Mamdani is having as New York mayor. All the videos that he was doing. One of the moments that went viral was talking to street vendors about like the regulations that they face, basically showing the inside view of like how the policies that exist already affect the people that are on there and how much, the rest of us, the public, don't really know what's happening. And then now that he's in office, we're seeing that he's keeping that up, right? He's keeping up videos about the subway and like what they're doing to like fix there. But one of the things that he's recently been doing a lot of is fixing potholes. I just saw that he crossed putting 100,000 or fixing 100,000 potholes, and he made that a whole like video. It's he did another series about shoveling snow, of how like they were getting people that live in New York paid to come out and shovel snow to make sure that it was cleared up. And it was just this like stark view of like realizing that like, wow, our politicians can actually A, be doing stuff, but then B, telling us about it. And I think for me, what it made me realize is how much we don't see the rest of the mayors, really talking about that. We are starting to see some of the presidential candidates come out with that just because they're gearing up for running for president in, 2028. The other thing here is there was an article that came out, this whole idea of like getting hot Democrats to run for office. And we're seeing that with a bunch of, obviously Mamdani's counted amongst those. We also have AOC. We have Graham Plattner, who's the Marine running in Maine Senate. Sam Forstag, the smoke jumper in Montana. Bob Brooks, a firefighter and union president for Pennsylvania. John Ossoff and Gavin Newsom. That may or may not hit for some people, but point is, he still falls in like the attractive, candidates. We also wanted to talk about this because David Plouffe, the campaign strategist for Obama, wrote an article yesterday saying that like the new content playbook for anybody that's running for office is focusing on these creator, playbooks, which is being forward facing on video. And it's funny because we've talked about that here, right? We talked about why Zoran Mamdani has started doing so well. And a lot of that is because of that forward facing video, right? At the time, I was saying that when he's campaigning against Andrew Cuomo's like, very stilted, very robotic when he comes out on camera. And it's funny because he started to change his strategy right after they started seeing that Mamdani was doing so well, but it just never quite works for him. At the time, we compared it to JFK versus Nixon, where it's like JFK was like the TV president and then Nixon was just like sweaty and gross on TV. And so now we had like Mamdani being the TikTok president, right? Where he could, be on camera and it just looked more natural and easy for him. But Sophie, would love to hear from you because you live in New York and Mamdani is your mayor and
He is
your
my
dog
mayor.
is also the NYC mayor. So I'm sure you...
My dog is, yes, my dog is the dog mayor of New York, which is for most people who do not know, an officially elected position. Zoran did attend Simon's inauguration, which was very exciting for us.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think, when I think back to Eric Adams, our last mayor, and what his social media content was, it was fake videos throughout his day being like 11 a.m. protein shake, 12 p.m. in my private car, like 1 p.m. secret meeting. It didn't tell you anything about what he does. And so I think that Zoran's been really smart. He's really approached this from like a no problem too big, no problem too small, and realized that it's probably easier to show us a lot of the small stuff day to day alongside those big, universal pre-K announcements. arguments. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, I mean, we see other politicians just doing this all the time now, trying to, remake that Mamdani style. And I think that we see it all the time. Like for some people, it works, and for some people, it doesn't. And I think a lot of it comes down to how authentically those people are saying their message. But yeah, it really
Mhm.
helps when you're dealing with someone who's, I think Mamdani's 34. Yeah. I will say, Zoran has a unique ability to stay on message. He was asked
Mhm.
yesterday about the summer house scandal, which is another
Mhm.
thing, we could have talked about.
Yep.
And he was on message as saying, oh, I don't really know about this, but I think Sierra's a nurse. And so I
Mm.
support Sierra, for helping the people in the city. It's like
Yeah,
he's
yeah, yeah.
so disciplined even when he's getting in on the pop culture, and I think that's really his unique ability to do this is he's
Mhm.
not making memes that are just trying to be funny. He's using the
Yeah.
style to the best of the ability, but delivering real information on real things he's
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the things when he went on the podcast with, what is it, Andrew Schultz, and
Mhm.
they're talking about, yes, political things, but then he's also able to banter with the guys and talk about
Yeah.
sports and talk about pop culture. And I saw this yesterday because, there's a bunch of commentary about the David Plouffe article about whether we want politicians to only be able to talk about politics, right? And they're saying we need to get them on like the Bill Simmons podcast, talking about like pop culture and sports and stuff. And then someone's like, well, I don't want my politicians to be able to talk about like, sports. I want them to be able to talk about politics. And it's like, okay, but you're already in the political world paying attention to politics. Most people, most
Right.
men are not paying attention to politics and don't want that, right? They want to be able to just banter with you. That's why one of those, one of the most famous questions that always gets asked about a presidential candidate is, would you have a beer with him?
I was
It's not
yes,
because, it's not because
exactly.
they want to talk politics with him. They want to bro out with him. And I think that's what we're seeing
Yeah.
with all these, political podcasts, the Joe Rogan show, the
Yep.
Theo Vaughn, the Andrew Schultz, all those. None of them have most of the, top political candidates on there. And maybe it's because most of them can't talk beyond anything that's like interesting to people, right? I think that's like a huge thing that people need to know about like podcasts. It's like you're on there to talk about stuff that the audience wants to listen to. And yes, you can talk about some of it, but you got to be able to talk about more than just like a political message.
Yeah, and we've seen so many of these politicians. I mean, Kamala went on, I think, Call Her Daddy, if I'm remembering correctly. But it was
Yeah.
like a whole thing like, is she going to go on Joe Rogan? And then she
Yeah, yeah.
didn't. That we Yes, a lot of us are very in the political news every day, but most
Mhm.
people aren't, and most people are
Mhm.
not voting based on policy decisions. And
Yeah.
so I think especially, Zoran came in, like, I can't express enough that no one knew who this guy was.
Mhm.
Like, no one. And the
Mhm. Mhm.
fact that he won over Andrew Cuomo, like,
Yeah.
it's because he reached people who wouldn't otherwise have voted. It's because people understood that there was an election. It was because he
Mhm.
approached it from all these sides. To me, it's like, do you need a digital video strategy like Zoran? Like, of course you do. It's not about Zoran. It's about the fact that it's
Mhm.
2026 and this is how you reach people now.
Mhm.
To me, it's the same thing people will say, like, could you put like book talk back in the bag? And it's like, well, not everyone's sitting around reading the New York Times book review.
I
And
know.
like, we have to reach people. Like, these are not genies we're putting back in the bag after
Yeah.
one candidate. People have to learn how to do it multiple
Mhm.
ways.
Mhm. Mhm.
That's how you win an election now.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But to, go back to the hot Dems, maybe we just skip the step of like, them being like good on policy and we just go straight to like they're attractive on camera and like people want to look at them, right? And then trying to teach those people how to speak, policy. But then also I think it just speaks to a lot of where many voters are, where it's like, yes, I care about policy, but like really diving deep into like, what each thing means or like how it's going to
Mhm.
affect me just gets harder and harder when like nothing actually seems to be moving forward, you know? And I think the thing
Totally.
with Mamdani has been that like he's like, okay, Let's fix the potholes. That's like a very, very visible thing that like we can fix right now. The
Mhm.
snow thing was another thing where it's like it's very visible. People feel it in their day-to-day lives. Let's get them trusting us on these things. And then maybe we can start doing like some of the bigger things. But he's also been, like you mentioned the pre-K, universal
Mhm.
pre-K, a policy that he just, also
Well, we'll give
puts.
credit to De Blasio for that
Mhm,
one,
mhm.
but he
Yeah.
just expanded it significantly. I mean, he
Yeah,
fixed
yeah.
a bridge ramp onto the Brooklyn
Mhm, mhm,
Bridge his first day in office, I believe.
mhm.
So it was like coming in right away, like, "See, look, we can get little things
Yeah.
done." And I think too, like, those quality of life things are so important and
Mhm,
makes people feel like something's actually happening in their city. I think another big one is like scaffolding. That's like a big one that he's trying to get done. It's so visible. Like take care
mhm,
of some of these things that people see in their everyday life. But it's not I mean his digital strategy too, going back to the to childcare,
mhm,
is that he is using other digital things. Like if you walk around the city, there's digital billboards where it like tells
mhm.
you how to sign up for universal childcare. It's like all over videos. So like they're
That's
saying
right.
the enrollment itself is up. And so this stuff
Yeah,
isn't
yeah.
just like his approval rating, it's enrollment in the programs. We saw
Mhm,
how many applications they got for people who wanted to work there. Like he's
mhm,
using this digital strategy for everything.
mhm.
And I think we're seeing how that trickles down in more ways than just votes.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I think was announced yesterday or today was that the murder rate is down,
Exactly.
you know? And
Crime
it's
is
like
down. Yeah.
exactly, and it's just like, people talk about how unsafe New York is and whether
Yeah.
you'd allow your kid to go on the subway, and it's like,
Ridiculous.
the realization of most people's day-to-day life is that they go on the subway every day and they use it.
Yes.
So it's that thing where it's like we're seeing this competency porn become a relevant strategy because it gets people believing that the government can do and will fix the things that are affecting your day-to-day life. And if they can do the small stuff, then maybe I will trust them to do the bigger stuff, the bigger policies
Yes.
that he wants to do. I mean, speaking as someone in LA and California, I'm jealous of New York because it's
Yeah.
like we're seeing that. We're
Yeah.
seeing actual action coming from your politicians. Whereas, here, I mean, we have the mayoral race happening here right
Mhm.
now. And I barely hear from them. I mean, I see Nithya Raman, not really seeing Karen Bass come out and like talk about
Yeah.
much of anything, or she's doing more of like the press conferences. Also, Zoran Mamdani does do that, right? Like he does come out and
He
he
does
does those
all of
press
it. Yeah.
conferences, but then he'll go and shoot like 30 to 60-second video
Mhm.
on the subway. And I think like that's the huge like discrepancy there where it's like he can do all forms of like the digital strategy and it's not just he's comfortable with one. And I think we're going to start seeing more of that. Even I mean, I'm starting to see that more with like our, governor races here in California because we're also going to
A
vote
lot
for
of
that
that comes
person as
down.
well.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes down, I think, to age as well. I mean, a lot
Hmm.
has been made of like, look, the guy looks tired. Like
Yeah.
he seems to be going at every minute of the day to every event.
Uh-huh.
I mean, people are online posting videos of him like biking around the
Hmm.
city. Like he just fasted for Ramadan. I don't know if he
Hmm.
sleeps. Like
Yeah.
I'm very worried as like a, mental Jewish mother about his like, sleep schedule, but I
Yeah.
think it really shows in how fast he can do these videos and how many he can put out. I mean, I remember seeing someone post, like, what is this guy doing? Like, filming these videos. He should be back at work. And someone on his team replied, like, it took him literally 10 minutes. Like,
Yeah.
you get him in, you get him out. He knows how to film a video. So I think you really see it.
But I think that's also the thing, right? Like, this is one of my lessons is that that is the job now. The job
Yeah.
includes making these videos and making this type of content so that you can find, voters and, your inhabitants wherever they are. And that
Yeah.
includes having a TikTok strategy, having a YouTube strategy, having a newsletter strategy, having a press conference strategy. He calls into shows as well. I think he learned that one from Trump, right? Like where
Yeah.
he'll call into like New York stations and talk to them, or he'll show up. I mean, he showed up at the it wasn't Colbert, it was Fallon. He showed up the
Hmm.
Fallon, show to like drop in for like, I think it was like 3 minutes. He was in at the top of the show and then he was out. And I think that's where, the thing that we have to, realize going forward, and I think for marketers going forward is that digital is part of the strategy and
Mhm,
especially video. I feel like so many, companies, startups, marketers still aren't going into video because they're like, "Oh, that's a whole different strategy. I have to learn a whole new thing." I mean, I felt that before I started doing the podcast, and I started getting a little bit more comfortable being in front of the
mhm,
camera, and like video editing and doing all that. Um, because that's where you're finding people having, going on TikTok, going on Reels, having,
mhm,
YouTube, put your video in front of like users. Like the majority of users are watching, portrait size videos, right? And like we need to be where they're at, especially if we want them to vote for us or to buy our
mhm.
product or to,
Yeah,
buy our service. So, go where the people are. And that now includes being on TikTok and being on video.
mhm. Agreed. Yeah. I completely second that. I think it's just, like I said, this is not like an option now. It's not
Mhm.
like you get to do one or the other. It's not like you're a digital candidate or you're not. Remember when Obama was the Facebook candidate? Like
Yeah.
this is not a thing we should talk about anymore. It like is what it is. You
Yeah.
need to promote yourself in those ways in the same way that you need to reach people who would never be caught dead on TikTok.
Yeah, definitely. And then one other lesson there is this whole idea of competency porn. People want to see what you're doing and have it be explained to them in a way that they understand. I think we're
Yeah.
seeing that a lot of that right now with the Artemis 2,
Mhm.
launch, and the video of like the astronauts actually talking to you and talking through their process, what they're thinking, what they're doing, what they're seeing in a way that's like understandable to us, and like you're not talking down to us like it's not that I mean, we're far less knowledgeable
An
and intelligent
astronaut.
than these
Yeah.
astronauts, but
I'll
like
take
I
that.
don't feel like they're talking down to me.
I was gonna say too, like I know a lot of people have written really intelligently about this with a show like The Pit, where it's like we
Mhm.
are just desperate to watch people do their job and do it
Mhm.
well and get
Yeah.
something done. We live in a really chaotic world right
Yeah.
now. And so I think just the people who are centering us and making us feel like
Yeah.
there are little accomplishments and things we can hold on to.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, so this is, advice to those marketers that like work in spaces that are doing really cool shit, especially like
Mhm.
hard tech, and like manufacturing, construction, health tech. Like what are these things that you're doing that regular people, that aren't in
Yeah.
your industry can understand like what you're doing. Like talk to those things and educate us on like how you're doing it and why it matters and why it's making a difference.
Yeah, I think a really good example of that actually would be, and I need to look into this more, but I've seen Eli Lilly, the medical
Mm,
company,
yeah.
just everywhere recently
Mm-hmm.
in
Interesting.
advertising. So like they were the
Uh-huh.
main sponsor of the New Yorker Festival when I went last October. I've seen
Uh-huh.
their ads like before movies I've been going to see. And their stuff
Interesting.
is really around like this is what we're doing to
Mhm.
improve healthcare outcomes.
Yeah.
This is the research we're doing. I'm not making any judgment on the advertising or the
Yeah.
validity of it or them as a healthcare company, but
Yeah.
I've found it really interesting how much they've been like trying to put it out to the people in really digestible
Mhm.
terms and, it's something as confusing as a healthcare company and the new technology to be like, look, we're doing something, think positively of us.